Guys, it's so difficult to talk without actually thinking things through. Being an INTJ, I want to be so specific that rambling just doesn't make sense. This video is going to be me talking off the cuffs. I just woke up. You could tell how long I've been talking based on how long it takes for my hair to dry. But if I don't record this now, I will never talk about these topics. I'm just going to talk about what's on my mind. There's no structure to this. This is pure NI. This is what I've been thinking about a lot recently. And I don't know whether this fits in any video format. So I'm just going to talk. We're going to start off with some tea. If you've been watching my previous few videos, I mentioned this INTP classmate that I had, which that quarter's over, so we're not classmates anymore. But there was an interaction with that INTP and another classmate that just made me feel bad for him. First, I cringed. Second, I just felt bad because I know he tried. Throughout the entire quarter, this INTP was a know-it-all in class. And he's not an ENTP because his TI was a lot higher than his NE and his function stack. Anyways, on one of the last few days of class that we had, he openly invited himself to become friends with another classmate that he's been talking to. And I think that other classmate might be an INTJ. But he asked that classmate, hey, what's your phone number? Let's hang out outside of class. And the other guy said, no. I'm like, no, it's cool. Like, I'll see you if I see you. And the INTP just kept pestering him, kept inviting himself, saying, oh, well, you know, like, we might not see each other. This might be the easiest way for us to hang out again. And the other classmate, the INTJ, just said, yeah, I mean, you know, we'll run into each other. I'm sure of it. The first emotion that I felt was secondhand embarrassment. And the second emotion is just sad. You know, like, I felt bad for this person. As an INTJ, NI and FI, we are one of the most extremely empathetic type out there once we learn how to use empathy. It's like, I'm able to put myself in his position almost instantly, knowing how embarrassed I would have felt if I was in his situation, knowing also the work up towards it, hearing the conversations, because they sit behind me in class, hearing the conversations that I had in class, and just knowing him as a person, which this goes a little deeper into it, but for some reason, well, to preface this, I think I might be a bad person. But to preface this point, like, he's a tall white male from California, so he's like liberal, but he says some not liberal shit. And the class has a bunch of ladies of different ethnicities. Anyways, this lady said something one day, and then he responded saying, well, I don't believe it's this way. And someone else reported him. Later that week, that person that reported him told me that she reported him. And then later the same week, the INTP started talking to me because we had a conversation about something. And he said that he got reported. And then our professor, who is an ENFP, came up to me after that conversation and started opening up to me about how she felt dealing with the INTP, because apparently the INTP would send the professor like very mean letters, like very, very difficult letters. And then in person, he would act like it's all just fine, that it never really happened. And it was just so strange for me as a person, because I'm not a very welcoming person. I'm not a warm person at all. But then I had a person who reported them, the person who was the problem, and then the professor all come to me and express their emotions about that situation. And I'm just trying to figure out, is it because they think I'm one of them? Like, am I that bad of a person that every bad person thinks that I align with them? Or is it because I'm so neutral? I want to think that it's because I'm neutral. That's why they're okay with talking to me about everything, but who knows? Anyways, there's been a few things that's been on my mind. The last thing that's been on my mind recently is just the idea of personality. Something that I recently just found out, and I knew I was missing some data point, but now it's confirmed because, you know, I was in psychology class. Personality incorporates upbringing. Personality does not come before nurture. So it's not nature versus nurture when it comes down to personality. It's a combination of nature and nurture. And a fellow INTJ content creator, Azura Psych, actually said in his most recent video, which is serendipitous because I learned it in class and then he made a video about it, is that the word that we're looking for is temperament. Temperament is the baseline of how someone reacts. Temperament is more along the lines of cognitive functions. It's, you're born within the spectrum of 0 to 100 within certain cognitive functions. Another word is temperament. And then throughout life, your personality it increases or decreases based on how you engage with the world. This is one of the reasons why I hate the INTJ stereotypes of wearing black. Like, I wear black because I'm a chunky monkey. I gain weight. I need to lay off all like the extra sweets that I've been eating recently, but I can't because whenever SE's in charge, SE's in charge. And it feels good to eat something that tastes good. But when people say the INTJs all wear black, that doesn't make sense because I wear black for a reason, and that reason is not necessarily fashion because of the efficacy or efficiency of the way that it works. In addition to that, there are certain colors that I wear more than others. I wear the color red a lot. My favorite color is red. And now that I think about it, it's been associated with a lot of things that I loved in life, like Sailor Mars. I love the rainbow color, but I can't use it anymore because if I wear rainbow, people think I'm part of the LGBTQ community, which I'm okay with. But it's like wearing I can't wear a red hat anymore either because if I wear a red hat, people think I'm a Trumper. When it comes down to personality and cognitive function, what I think most people misunderstand is that there is not a definitive way to answer personality when it comes down to cognitive function. And what I mean by this is that you can't look at a specific situation and automatically determine whether that situation or that action is based off of a specific cognitive function. Essentially, it boils down to just because someone does something doesn't mean it's automatically associated with a certain cognitive function. Something as simple as taking out the trash. If you take out the trash every single day, you can say that that person is a very studious person. It's conscientious. Conscientiousness is more attached with extroverted thinking. However, when it comes down to studious, when it comes down to routine, that's more associated with introverted sensing. But then you have to look at it from the other perspective as well. What if the room was a mess and that person didn't feel good anymore? So then the action of taking out the trash is driven by introverted feeling. What if they had people coming over and they didn't want to look like a slob? Then that could potentially be extroverted feeling. What if the trash has been there for weeks and now this person finally notices it? That could be extroverted sensing as a result of low introverted intuition, not seeing the trash for so long. What I'm getting to is that any action could be attributed to most, if not all, cognitive function, which makes typing a lot more difficult, but it should be difficult because it's psychodynamic. It's something that you can't definitively define into one pillar or area. I think the biggest perpetrators online that I've seen so far that I've noticed, because I follow every single Myers-Briggs subreddit, I go on Quora, and then I'm in a bunch of Facebook groups too. Don't look for me. And I've noticed that the people who are the most adamant about a certain action being related to a specific cognitive function are TI and FI dominant users. They believe so wholeheartedly that this is done because of this, because it fits within their framework, that it removes any type of realness to it. And I also do suspect that it's also because INFPs and INTPs are both extrovert sensing blind, because I don't really see it within like ISTPs or ISFPs. There is this theoretical component when it comes down to cognitive functions, because cognitive functions in essence is theoretical. We can't tie it back empirically to any type of data saying that this is exactly what NI feels like. This is exactly what FE feels like. And even in the YouTube sphere itself, I've noticed that INTJs are less likely, even though we're stereotyped to be the more deterministic of the two, we are less likely to say something is than something isn't when it comes down to personality in comparison to our NI sisters, the INFJs. INFJs are quicker to determine that something is or isn't based off of TI, and INTJs are less likely for personality to type people because of FI. I don't know what the reason is, guys. And one of the reasons why I'm talking about this video is because I saw a video recently from this YouTube channel. Even if I don't agree with a specific channel, I still follow them just to see if I can get some type of golden nugget in the pile of shit that they put out. They recently typed one of my idols, and I'm not going to say who it is or what video it is because I don't want to, I don't want to shit where that person eats, but it upset my FI. It's someone that I looked up to, someone that got me through a lot throughout my lifetime, and they completely mistyped this person. They butchered this person, and it's because they looked at one moment in this person's career and said that, oh, this person did this because of this cognitive function. That doesn't make any fucking sense. That's not how people operate. If we were to determine people based off of a singular action, 2 actions or 3 actions, that means that every single person in the world can easily be defined because we would be robotic. There would be so little nuance between people that it would be like the movie Gattaca, where we can determine who a person is, and based off their strength and weakness, based off of Myers-Briggs, determine whether they should be an elite, an astronaut, a janitor, or everything in between. Because at that point, life is figured out. And at that point, honestly, psychology is figured out. But that's not how life is. Life is way more complex than that. There's so many different nuances that a person can demonstrate based off of their upbringing that may or may not align with the stereotype of that MBTI type or that cognitive function. I'm going to use extroverted sensing as an example because that's this function that I've been focusing on a lot recently because it's my 4th function as an INTJ, and it's something that still baffles me. A lot of people in the community, when they talk about extroverted sensing, they're talking about just engaging with the world, but they don't talk about the mental side of it. They don't talk about how you have to mentally process extroverted sensing before and after you engage with extroverted sensing, because every function itself is a loop. There's the internal portion, and then there's the external portion. The MBTI community primarily focuses on the external portion of a cognitive function, which ignores half, if not more, or a little less than what the function actually is. Extrovert sensing is simplified as a party function, as wanting to go out, as wanting to engage with the world, which it does do that, but what it ignores is why we want to. And what it ignores is what happens, because don't forget, it's still a perceiving function. It still collects information. So we're going to say that extrovert sensing is just going out there, but we're ignoring that it's supposed to collect information for introverted intuition. When we talk about extroverted intuition, we think about how creative they could be, but we don't talk about why they're being creative. What is the purpose of a gathering perceiving function if not to balance out the opposite side of it? The introverted intuition or the introverted sensing. Another thing that I think we ignore a lot when it comes down to MBTI community is that functions work with each other. So it's not just as an INTJ, I use primarily NI, so everything I do is just NI. But what happens when NI is done? When SE collects information and NI sorts the information, what happens to the information? It becomes introverted sensing at that point because we've already collected the data. It's not new anymore. What do we call information that isn't new that we use to make future decisions on? That's introverted sensing. All cognitive functions are interconnected. Even when I'm using extroverted thinking, I shift between extroverted thinking and extroverted feeling depending on who I'm talking to, the goal that I'm trying to get at, and what the primary objective is. If I wholeheartedly believe that I need to be more feeling, if I need to incorporate emotions into the conversation or the mix in order to achieve whatever objective, then extroverted feelings coming out. It's not just pure TE. And also, I see this when I communicate with extroverted feeling users too. Sometimes they just have to put their foot down. When they put the foot down, that's extroverted thinking. In regards to introverted intuition, which is my favorite function because it's my primary function, introverted intuition has to go through a state similar to extroverted intuition in order to arrive to what we arrive to. Because if we don't look at every single option that is available based off the trajectory of the data that we collected using extroverted sensing, then it's more similar to introverted sensing. Oh, I collected this data. Well, based off of what I know, therefore it must lead to this, right? That's introverted sensing, but that's not intuition. Introverted intuition instead is I collected this data, I compared it against my very tiny introverted sensing. Based off of that, we are most likely at this point. Now, where's intuition taking me? Okay, it can lead to path A, B, C, D. There's so many variables that introverted intuition has to consider in order to arrive to a conclusion. Sometimes it's very instantaneous. Sometimes it takes weeks or months. But we have to look at almost every single option out there when it comes down to our intuition likelihood of something happening for us to determine that, yes, this is most likely going to happen. So when I watch a video and it's a very well-developed NI user, an INTJ or INFJ, I can see their process of them using NI, looking at different variables in order to arrive at their conclusion. But I've also seen people make assumptions that these people are NE users, which is the same way the opposite as well. When an ISTJ or ISFJ, who are SI dominant and lower NE, whenever they get into that mode where they want to be a little crazy and start using extrovert intuition more often, or start using extrovert intuition, people assume that they're the opposite type, which doesn't make sense to me because people are using functions that they're not comfortable with. And it all comes down to comfortability. As an NI user, I could tell when other people are using NI, but I could tell the mastery or the level that they have with introverted intuition. I could see it within myself whenever I'm using introverted feeling and the little level of mastery that I have with it. So I don't really understand why this community, because MBTI has been out for a while now. I mean, I made a whole deep dive video into the history of MBTI. Why we are still so caught up into cognitive functions being so specific. Specific definition of cognitive functions lead to stereotypes. Some stereotypes lean towards, being true. Other stereotypes not being so accurate. I know there's a lot more I want to talk about, but my brain hasn't caught up to where I am at this point. It's still processing everything, trying to figure out where I'm trying to get at, what I'm trying to get to. But that's pretty much the gist of this video. Cognitive functions are definitive, but cognitive functions need to be taken into consideration with upbringing, so nature and nurture, in order to fully understand a person. We also need to find justification for actions before we type someone, because there are many justifications for a specific action. To look at something and to automatically assume it's a specific type, that could be the baseline of typing someone, but that shouldn't be the ending of typing someone. To say that someone does something because of this without actually looking at everything around that action, it will lead to mistyping, further embellishing people's actions when it comes down to trying to portray that type that they were typed, further hurting the validity of this very tight community. And also, it just makes you look stupid. Anyways, that's all for this video. Thanks for watching. Hope everyone have a great day. People, introverts, go outside. Enjoy the sun. Bye, everyone.